Master Ron for a few words.
We have an exemplification in Wisconsin Rapids on the 27th of October, and trying to get that set up with Jack has been a little bit hard. In the letter that was sent out, and Ed was just talking about it earlier, that the letter was sent out and the Master Jack's name was on there for sending these stuff in. We are not going to change that. If you have candidates coming down and they got to be sent in, send them all to Jack or to Roland so we have them. We will do our best to get this back on track, and with that I am going to have to leave, Roland, and I want to thank you for inviting me down.
I do thank Ron for coming. I worked with Ron on the 4th degree for several years with his lovely wife, Kathy, and very dedicated, hardworking people. It's a very good choice, and I'm really happy to work with you, Ron. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call forward our marshal from the Eastern District, Sir Knight Mike Jordan.
The first thing I'd like to do is thank Roland for this appointment. I'm very humbled by that and appreciative. You guys have put up with me for 4 years, and we'll see what the next 4 years brings. But as I always say, I sure would like to be in every assembly, or at least in every area for practices. I talked many times about the practices, and there are some areas that I haven't been invited to in the last 4 years to do practices. So once again, it's all about keeping all of our honor guard on the same page. This past summer, I had an opportunity to talk with an honor guard member in the Green Bay Diocese at a fundraiser. And I was sitting with him and we were talking, and I said, hey, well, first of all, we know one thing. The books came out almost 4 years ago. The two major changes in the books were the way that we hold our sword is now perpendicular to the chest instead of flat against the chest. And the other thing is for communion, we don't bring our chapeaux. We take our chapeaux and gloves and leave them in the pew. So back to my story, I asked him, I says, are you guys still walking up to communion with your chapeaux against your chest? And he says, yes. I said, really? Been through practices, and that's still continuing to happen. And he basically told me, he says, well, Mike, you're a teacher, you're a trainer, but you really can't tell us what to do. And so I said, really, again? And I said, so when the Supreme Master, the Supreme Knight, and the Supreme Chaplain get together and made that decision to change that rule on communion, they communicated through a book. They communicated through it to the Vice Supreme Masters, who then communicated to the Masters. And at that time, Master Carl Duke instructed me to go out and train the book. So that doesn't mean anything to you guys. That's the decision from the top. And he said, not really. He said, the bishop wants us to do it this way. And my first comment was, the bishop really doesn't have anything to say about our protocol. We're dictating from the top to the bottom how we want our honor guard to be. And I've been in a lot of honor guard events and with the bishops and stuff, and they're very complimentary when they come through our ranks. But I've yet to hear one of them say, you guys really did a great job, and boy, I like that part about communion when you had that chapeau against your chest. I just haven't heard that one. But just throw a little bit of humor into this is what I'm trying to do, because I'm not a serious person. I'm not going to stand up here and dictate. It is my job to train. When you look at true protocol, the commanders report to the navigator and are appointed by the navigator. And the navigator reports to the master, and I report to the master. So at any point in time, if there's a question to be asked about whether we should be doing it or not doing it, it is the master who makes that decision. And if we openly violate his wishes, is really being insubordinate from a protocol standpoint. So I really want everybody to know my discussion with the master, Roland, and that is that he is supporting everything in this book. And as I've talked before, there's only one thing in this book that has changed, and that's in regards to the lapel pin. We can wear the new lapel pin and not the one that stayed in the book. Many times the book has gray areas where we need clarification. And that's when we can ask, and I know many times with former Master Carl, it went to me, it went to Carl, it went to the Vice Green Master to get a decision on really what did you guys mean in that book. So there's always answers that can be gotten, but in a clear rule in the book, that's surely what we would like to have happen. So once again, I just wanted to tell that story just to make sure everybody realizes that it is Master Roland's wishes to abide by the manual. And if there's any questions, ask the questions and we can bring them to the top if we have to get clarification. Are there any questions? Rick?
Could you talk a little bit about honor guards wearing their jewels during an event?
Honor guard are allowed to wear jewels at any time. Let me start over here. Every event has someone in charge. If it's an assembly event, it's the commander. If it's an area event, it's still someone has to be the captain or the commander of that event. And decisions by those people are the ones that you abide by in every occasion. Now, in the book, it talks about you can wear your jewels of office anytime you're in your honor guard uniform. Lapel pins are always out and never to be worn. I do know in past exemplifications or diocesan functions, a new bishop, a diocesan celebration of any sort, the master in the past has said that he didn't want any jewels. No miniature jewels, no office jewels, no nothing, and that was his decision. So it's really, every event is to be determined by the one in charge of the event. That's something you and I haven't talked about that yet, but that one is, the miniature jewels is definitely a conflict every time we go somewhere. So he gets to make that decision. I get to tell it to everybody. Jerry.
Mike, I don't know if this is the proper time to bring this up, and in all due consideration to you, you've done a great job. But ours is a rather large district, and for you sometimes to make it down to the Milwaukee area, especially as the winter months come on and whatever, is there ever been any consideration about having another marshal for the eastern end of our district to assist you, or maybe your assistant or something of that sort? And I guess I would direct this more so to you, Roland, as the new master. Because I know Mike is a busy person, both in your other life too, Mike, and whatever, for you to come down for all the events that we have in our area, it's very difficult. And I just wonder if there isn't time now to consider that, Roland, that we have a marshal for the events in the Milwaukee area. First off, the ethnic masses that are celebrated throughout the summer and other things. So, I mean, I don't know if this is the time to bring it up.
Well, in his short time of being appointed, that already has been one of the conversations that we had.
Yes, and speaking for the western part of the state, they will now have 3 marshals. 4 marshals. 4 marshals. So we've had discussion on the eastern part. I'm again getting my feet wet on this. The demographics is it's a little different on the western part, but I feel right now it's, how can I say this? It's just one more person that's in charge of the chain of commands, and I'm not real comfortable with that right now at this point. But I understand what you're saying, Jerry, and there's a possibility, and we'll look at it as I get my feet wet on, more on the ground on that. That's a strong possibility, yes. But I just, to have four masters, Area 2 coordinators, commanders, and the master, it seems like it's like somebody ordering a bologna sandwich, and by the time you get to it, you got a ham and cheese, because there's so many different people that say something, and by the time it gets to that last individual, the story can get really turned around, and I'm not real comfortable with that at this point, but we are looking at it, and even Mike talked to me about this, and we'll look at it strongly as we move into the spring, okay?
On the other side of that too, I do have a very busy life, and there isn't anybody in this room that can't say that same thing. Even in retirement, which I am not, we all know how busy the retirees are. They say, how did I get all this done before while I was working? So, but also I've been giving up a lot of things in my KC life. Captain of the first degree team, I backed away from that, captain of the second degree team. I know that I need to spend more time. Jerry does a real nice announcement all the time for your area of all the activities, and I kind of look at my calendar, and I don't have very many openings, and I have to free that up. Also, I'm still open to a lot of things. I attended Jerry's parade in West Bend. If you guys have parades, give me a call, send me an email. I'd love to come down and be part of that. I always took care of our float for our assembly. When you organize for a parade, it isn't something that you just wake up in the morning, get in your car, and you go. I mean, the night before, the first thing that I gotta have to make sure is the truck is washed. I wash it at home, and then I take it to the car wash. Come back, I load it up with the chairs, the flags, refreshments, everything else. I have to get to the parade an hour and a half early, make sure everybody's there. Once we get there, we put the banners, flags on. And even before that, you had to make sure you had verbal or written communication with the parade organizers that they know you were even coming. And then when the parade is all done, you pack everything away, get home, and then you unpack the truck and put it all the way till the next parade. And I gave that up. I don't do that anymore. One less thing I have to do. So I'm really trying to guide my life in order to make sure that this position, the next 4 years, I definitely spend more time. And I want communication back to me. I keep saying, keep inviting me to your assemblies for practices. It's not all about practices. Let me know what you're doing, and would you like me to be there? So.
Two things. Do you still do the top? No, do you still do the top 10 list and conditions over the other things?
Yeah, that was the other thing I brought up here. Part of my story with some honor guard members or assemblies still going up to communion with the chapeau across their shoulder. I came up with this top 10 list. It was reprinted twice, so it was twice in the last years. And I actually kind of doubt that for all the copies, we made more copies than there are honor guard members in the district, whether they even got it down to the end. If you really go by these, in my first year and a half as marshal, these are 10 things that I noticed at most events that there was always something wrong, or things that we needed to improve on. I'm just going to read them as long as I have it with me here. March through the corners, do not hesitate or stop. In my practices, I always talk about that, and I learned how to do a good corner from Steve Reuter, because he knows what it takes when we do the big degree and how everybody's watching, and you really got to march through the corner. And for those that were in the military, I think there's a different military step for each branch of the service. So they're all taught something different. So once again, it's about the continuity, how we look out there, and try and get our people all doing the same thing. Number 2 was know the difference between the domino effect and the regular group salute while saluting the cross and clergy. When you have a large group of honor guard, you can't see when the first person comes up to go to present. So basically, do a domino when the priest comes to you or the cross comes to you. In pairs, you come up and go to present, and it's a domino effect. It's also domino effect when you come out of salute.